What were we doing yesterday? The last topic, that last thing that we did. Science. Till what extent? Okay. So scientific methodology is already done. Let me elaborate something more here. Let's write this and then I'll discuss. Start the copy, start writing. Put the heading as, yesterday after your discussion only, then I felt, why don't we elaborate the steps of scientific methodologies more? Right? Those areas that we have discussed yesterday, from those areas, UPSC has already asked questions. Right? Can anyone give me a guarantee that they are not going to go any further? No one, none of us can do that. Let's take it a little bit more further. Right? Put the heading, steps or stages. Steps or stages of scientific methodology. Yesterday I mentioned about it. Take out the notes of yesterday. Take out what we wrote down yesterday. Right? You'll find out the steps or stages. They are already mentioned. How come? We have mentioned about observation, systematic observation. We have mentioned about measurement and experimentation. We have mentioned about formulation, testing, and modification of hypothesis. Right? But how these things are done at the end of the day? Clear? This is what I mean by steps or stages of scientific methodology. Okay. Number one, observation and description. Observation and description. Why observation and description? Let's talk about those steps I mentioned yesterday. I mentioned observation. But what do we do by observing something? You have a pen in your hand, right? If we observe that pen, what are we going to do by observing that pen? Say you are someone who's about to do some experimentation with that pen. Experiments do happen with pens as well, right? The pen that you're using, maybe it's a roller ball pen, right? Maybe there is a ball in front of the nib. That ball is moving and that's how you're writing. Maybe that's a gel pen. It can also be a fountain pen. I do not know. Maybe you want to smoothen the way of writing of that pen. There can be further experimentation on that as well. We have so many different brands of pens in the market. Link, then God knows what not. Link, I got the idea of Link by looking at the pen in her hands. Okay. So many pen companies are there. Parker is there, right? If you ask me, I do love Schaefer, right? I'm still in love with fountain pens. I won't deny that. I'm a bit old school. So for me, Schaefer is still good. Whether you talk about, now the person who actually invented pen, his name is Waterman. The company Waterman is still there, right? They still produce fountain pens and they also produce inks for fountain pens. They produce ballpoint pens as well today. Okay, in fact, they are more costly than Parker. We think Parker is the costliest one. No, Parker is one of the cheapest actually, right? For us Indians, Parker is the high standard. No, Schaefer, Waterman, these are far more costlier than Parker. Anyway. So let's come back to what we were talking about. That means continuously experimentation with pens also are going on. Now, if I want you to observe that pen, maybe for the sake of an experimentation, to make it write better. Okay, what are you going to do by observing the pen? just by observation, what we do? Nothing. There has to be a description as well, right? Without the description, that observation means nothing. No? That's why this point. It's not just about observation. Along with observation, this description should also be there. So what am I doing? We have already written these steps yesterday. I'm just elaborating them further. I'm breaking them down further. That's what I'm doing. Okay? Next, number 2. Formulation of a hypothesis. Formulation of a hypothesis to explain the phenomenon. To explain the phenomenon. How many of you are from science background? How many of you had science in +2, 10 + 2? Okay. Even those who are not directly from the background of science. By science, what we mean is natural sciences, right? In India, we still do not consider social sciences as part of science. A few universities, they do, like Delhi University, Calcutta University. These are a few universities where they do. But that's not done in every university. So, fine, not an issue. Thank you. My point is, whenever we are going for observing something, say someone is observing this class, right? Someone is observing this class from outside. And then that person is also writing the description. For what purpose? There is a cyclone which hit Chennai, right? It has practically mauled Chennai. That's what happened, right? We are also looking at the impact of that cyclone here in Hyderabad today. This rainfall and all these things, they're because of the depression, right? Caused by that cyclone. Tell me, by observing that cyclone, by going for description of that cyclone, what are we going to do at the end of the day? What is the purpose? Addressing the issue, right? How do you address the issue? You create a hypothesis. You create not exactly a theory. Theory is something greater. Theory is something that is proven. This is a step before being proven. Hypothesis. Right? You create an idea. You conceptualize an idea. So after observation and description, next comes formulation of the idea, hypothesis. Clear? That's what you have written. Right? After formulation of the idea, now what comes next? Proving the hypothesis. Right? Point number 4. This is 4 or 5? 3. Oh, we have not written about hypothesis yet. Second was hypothesis. Okay, number 3. Fine. Going for experimentation. Going for experimentation. To prove or disprove the hypothesis. To prove or disprove the hypothesis. And to find out minute details of the hypothesis. Right? Here comes the experimentation stage. Without experimentation, how am I going to prove the hypothesis? I can prove the hypothesis, I can disprove the hypothesis. Right? Geography, we all are studying as part of GS. Whichever institute you are from, doesn't matter. You have to study geography, right? In geography, we came across one particular term. I don't know whether you have heard of this person or not. Immanuel Kant. Gaseous hypothesis, nebular hypothesis, right? Kant, at one point of time, made a statement. He says, you give me matter, I'll create the world, I'll create a universe. He was so arrogant. But today, you tell me, is that hypothesis of Kant, is it true? Do we take it valid? No, it's not. It has been already disproved. Right? So a hypothesis can be proved to be true. A hypothesis can be disproved to be true. That means proved to be false. Both can happen. 1960, I'm looking at two people. I'm losing their name. Harry Hess and the other person, I'm losing the name. I'm looking at the idea of sea floor spreading. Right? Subsequently, after sea floor spreading, then came the idea of plate tectonics. Right? With plate tectonics, I'm looking at the name of Alfred Wegener. Right? Today, when I'm looking at things, they are proved. We know about the existence of the plates. We know the plate that we live in is called Indo-Australian plate. Some call this Indian plate, right? Well, it's not yet an Indian plate. The plate has started breaking apart. The Indian plate is breaking, right? It's breaking from the Australian plate, but previously it was Indo-Australian plate. The first time we witnessed this rupture in the Indo-Australian plate was in 2004. On 25th of December 2004, there was a massive tsunami. I don't know whether you've heard of this or not, right? There was a massive tsunami in Indian Ocean region. Very close to Indonesia, the Indo-Australian plate, it started developing a crack. The Australian plate started separating from Indian plate, right? When that crack happened, there was a massive earthquake. As a result of that earthquake, the release of the energy, there was this tsunami in Indian Ocean region. Some 1,80,000 people died in Indonesia. 1 lakh around people, they died in Thailand. 60,000 people died in Sri Lanka. 15,000 plus, they died in India, right? Because of that tsunami, 2004. Now, what am I looking at? Indian plate. But originally the plate was Indo-Australian plate. Fine? Good. So what's happening with these hypotheses? They were also hypotheses originally. When Alfred Wegener for the first time gave the idea, when he was talking about Pangea and Panthalassa, right? And then he started talking about how Pangea started breaking apart, right? From there on, we are getting the idea of plate tectonics, plate movements. Right? Today, we know that it can be proved, or it has been proven. In fact, if you look at the world atlas properly, do we have any here? No. Uniquely, Africa and Latin America, they fit with each other. Nah? Like a jigsaw puzzle, if you place them together, they just fit with each other. These are visible proofs of that plate tectonics that took place. Clear? So come back. So an hypothesis can be proven or can be disproven. With respect to Immanuel Kant, it was disproven. With respect to Alfred Wegener, with respect to Harry Hess, both seafloor spreading or plate tectonics, they were proven to be true. Clear? So that's what I'm looking at. Now look at the points that you've written down. They're not over yet. So first came observation and description. Next came formulation of the hypothesis. Then came proving or disproving the hypothesis and also fine-tuning the nitty-gritties of the hypothesis. Now comes number 4, formulation of the theory. Right? Once the hypothesis is proven to be true, it becomes a theory. Formulation of the theory with substantive facts. Formulation of the theory with substantive facts. Right? Last, number 5. Performance of experiments performance of experiments on the theory. Performance of experiments on the theory by independent researchers. How many of you are aware about the PhD degree awarding and all that process? How many of you plan to do your PhD or thinking about academic career as well? No one? You are? What happens? How things happen? Not just science background, for every particular stream. Either you go for UGC-NET or for the entrance examinations, right? Scholarship examinations. Because without scholarship, doing a PhD is very difficult. It's extremely costly, right? Fine. Then
having an interview process where I need to interact with our panel members and then
fine. Your interview is done. You're given a guide. You start working under the guide. Then what happens? You'll formulate a theory, right? See what's happening. First comes the researcher himself or herself. Say you're working on a hypothesis. You observe something, right? And on that observation, you are preparing your own theory, right? Obviously, you will also be doing some experimentation on that particular hypothesis. You have to, right? You have to do that experimentation and then you have to prove the hypothesis in your thesis. Now what happens? The thesis goes for peer review. What is peer review? Your guide, your research guide will make you submit the thesis with the university. The university will send the thesis to n number of people, some 5-6 people. It will go to those 5-6 people. Those 5-6 people, they now would be revalidating your thesis. They would try to find out the mistakes in your thesis. Who are they? They are independent researchers working on your theory. They're trying to disprove your theory. That's the point you've written down. There has to be independent researchers who would also validate that what you're saying is right. You would obviously try to prove yourself right. Right? You may also manipulate with the data. What's the proof that you have not manipulated the data? What's the proof that the experimentation that you did was honest enough? Why would anyone believe you? And then again, let me tell you, this is sociology. Right? We sociologists are the biggest skeptics in the world. We don't believe anyone. We don't trust anyone. Even the pioneering thinkers, if you have the syllabus, take out the syllabus. Those pioneering thinkers whom we have in the syllabus, Emil Durkheim, Karl Marx, Max Weber, right? Then we have Talcott Parsons, Robert King Merton, George Herbert Mead. They're mentioned in paper 1. In paper 2, you'll have some more thinkers there. Go to paper 2, you'll find G.S. Ghure, Govind Sadashiv Ghure, M.N. Srinivas. You'll find A.R. Desai, Akshay Ramanlal Desai. You'll find, the name is not mentioned though, but you'll find one topic mentioned there, modernization of Indian traditions, Yogendra Singh. Right? You'll also find Andre Bete, Louis Dumont in stratification. Just go to the next page, where caste and jati is mentioned, you'll find these names, G.S. Ghure, M.N. Srinivas. Don't get scared. The first and foremost thing, don't get scared. Right? None of them are tigers or bears or something like that. They don't eat us. Right? They're very sweet and cute people. No, not all of them are, but we'll study them and they are very easy to understand. My point is, understand things. Don't bug anything. right? For that, if we need time, we will take time. Doesn't matter. Yesterday only I told you that I'm going to take more time. I'm going to increase time. The simple reason is don't mug anything. This is sociology. Don't mug anything. See, let me tell you something here. Every year, it's very much possible for all of us, especially those of us who are coming from the field of sociology as well, and we also have been exposed to UPSC. It's really possible for us to predict the areas from where they are going to ask questions. This year in Hyderabad only I conducted a crash course. The areas I predicted, yes, I predicted some 5 or 6 weird areas. 6 weird areas. Out of those 6 weird areas, from 5 areas we got the question. Right now, that's exactly what I'm doing with you as well. This area that we are discussing right now, from here questions have not been asked. But there is a possibility that from here as well questions can be asked in the future. So let's streamline it. Why not? Right? Because UPSC has not asked a question is not a guarantee that they will never ask a question. Clear? So it's possible to predict UPSC, but predict UPSC means predict the area, but not the question. I'm not going to set the question paper. I cannot. Clear? We do not know who's going to set the question paper. And then again, you give me one area, and from that one area, at least I can at any given point of time formulate at least 20 to 25 questions. So you tell me how to predict questions. That's not possible. So how can you mug something? Clear? But if you study something by understanding that thing, let them twist the questions. If you can understand that area conceptually, and if you can understand the demand of the question, what they're asking in the question, can you write them? Obviously you can. Right? This time, number of questions. Intentionally, I twisted a few questions. Right? The second question was completely twisted. Okay. Number of you got baffled. God knows what's being asked here. Believe me, 90% of the answers are wrong. Fine. It's okay. But that's a learning step for you. Make the mistakes, but make them here. One simple thing we say, the more you sweat here, the less you'll bleed there. Clear? So do it here. Doesn't matter. Make the mistakes. But understand the things, understand the demand of the question. Yes, you will be able to write the answers. Clear? Come back. Let's go to what we were doing. Right? Anyone read the 5 steps that I have mentioned loudly. I want someone to read those steps.
Observational description was the first point.
Right.
Second point, formation of hypothesis to explain the phenomenon.
Right.
Third point, going for experimentation to prove or disprove the hypothesis and to find out minute details of hypothesis.
Perfect.
Fourth point, formulation of the theory with substantive facts.
Perfect.
Fifth point, performance of experiments on the theory by independent researchers.
Perfect. These are the 5 steps. This is what we mean by scientific methodology. That's how we work. Any theory in any subject you may talk about, right? That's how those theories, they all have been formulated. Okay? Do one thing, take out the notes of yesterday, go through that, and then look at this. Look at these steps. For you two ladies, you don't have the notes of yesterday. Someone, can you share the notes with them? Which one? Test, right. Not today. Let's not do it today. Achha, give me some time. Let's finish this topic. We'll take up previous questions and we'll do it. Do we have the question paper with us right now? Done, everyone? Okay. Now let's go for criticism. Put the heading, criticism of scientific methods. Criticism of scientific methods. Again, let's note them point-wise. Number one, complexity of social science data. Complexity of social science data. Yesterday, I was talking about the difference between natural sciences and social sciences. Can anyone help me understand? What's the difference between natural sciences and social sciences? The subject matter is concrete. Exactly. As we say, change is the only constant in society. It is an oxymoron, right? I'm talking about a constant. And what is a constant? Change. Clear? When I'm looking at natural sciences, as I was talking about yesterday, say if I talk about physics, right? The properties of iron is going to be what it is. Those properties are not going to change. Properties of carbon composites, they're going to be of one particular type. Right? Can you use carbon composites for transmission of electricity? Tell me, where? You're burning the coal. Is it being used for transmission? I said transmission of electricity. Carbon elements are there, but then carbon elements are actually causing the resistance in those metals. That's the reason why graphite and those kind of carbon composites, they are ordinarily used as insulators. Clear? Whether you talk about wood, you talk about graphite, those carbon composites are being used as insulators. Clear? Carbon elements are there in every metal or so, right? And that's why they are the ones which create the resistance level in those metals. There are certain metals in which if you keep on using them for electricity transmission, they start getting heated. Nah? After a point of time, they become red hot. And why is that happening? Because of the resistance level of that material. And from where this resistance level is coming? From those carbon elements within. Okay? So carbon has its own properties in physics. We cannot deny that. Similarly, if I talk about, say, aluminium, right? It is a great conductor of electricity. Copper, again, a great conductor of electricity. So in physics, what am I looking at? I'm looking at the elements, the subject matters, and those subject matters are far more concrete in nature. They don't change very easily. The features and aspects, they are concretized. Tell me about the concreteness in a human being. Tell me about the concreteness in you. Tell me about the concreteness in me. I'm sitting here right now. Today after the class, I may contact flu. If I contact flu, if I get high fever by the night, can I take the class tomorrow? So where is that concreteness in individuals? Let's talk about the society. When we talk about society, what is a society made up of? You, me, us, the individuals only. If we are not concretized, so many factors are affecting us. Mood swings, likings, dislikings, so many things are there, na, which influences us continuously. Now tell me, as a result of that, if we are variables, how can the society be concretized? Maybe over a period of time, the society can be concrete. Because when you're talking about, say, 100 years or 1,000 years, you're not bothering about one individual there. You're talking about a group, and the group survives. The Indian society, if I have to talk about the values of Indian society, I'm finding these values from Harappan civilization. Right? I'm looking at Pashupati seal in Harappan civilization. And from there, I'm getting the idea of Shiva. I'm looking at the Yoni Mudra and the Mother Goddess in Harappan civilization. And from there, I'm getting the idea of Durga or Parvati or Mahamaya. Clear? It is in Harappan civilization that I'm finding the attributes of fire worshipping, fire altars. Not only among the Harappan civilization, but also among the Rigvedic Aryans, I'm finding fire worshipping. The various forms of altars that they used to make, the Havan Kund, Yagya Kund that they used to make. Yagya Kund, today though we use only square Yagya Kund, right? Yagya Kund can be of different types, can be round as well, it can be star-shaped, it can be pentagonal, it can be hexagonal, based on the requirement, right? So all those things I'm finding there. So tell me, all these aspects of culture, religion is what? Part of culture only, right? All these aspects of culture that I'm looking at, they're continuing for how many years? 5,000 years. Clear? So collectivity is still somewhat concrete. I can't deny that. That's why even after 5,000 years, I'm finding those elements to survive. Some concreteness is there. But if I talk about a very short span, say I'm talking about 100 days instead of 100 years, tell me about the concreteness in that particular 100 days. What concreteness? A lot will change in 100 days. Right? So based on the time span, obviously I'm looking at the increase in variability factor. And then again, do you think the way the Harappan people or the Aryan people in the early Vedic period, they used to practice a religion, we still do that? No, we don't. You have no idea how many local languages, how many hymns in the local languages you use. Let me ask you, what is the language of Hanuman Chalisa? Someone said Avadhi. Who? Tulsidas. Avadhi. What is Avadhi? Language of Awadh region, Ayodhya. The whole Tulsidasa Ramayana is written in Avadhi. And from there, the extraction is Hanuman Chalisa. Right? Jai Hanumana Gyanaguna Sagar if you think about Sanskrit, those who are actually Pandits in Sanskrit, and they'll faint. That's Sanskrit. Clear? So tell me about these times or number of additions which are happening in the different local languages. How many of you have heard about Ravana being the most dedicated worshipper of Shiva and Parvati, Shiva and Mahamaya? You know from where you're getting that idea? Krittivasa Ramayana, written around 1200 CE in Bengali. I'm getting the idea that it's Ravana who's composing the Shiva Tandava Stotram. Right? I'm looking at heavy influence of Bengali and Sanskrit in Shiva Tandava Stotram. Bengali as a language was not there at that point of time. It was just evolving from Prakrit. So practically the influence I'm looking at is of Prakrit and Sanskrit. Two languages combined. That's Shiva Tandava Stotram. So tell me about the language, man. You have no idea all those things that you recite, in which language those things are written. You go and talk to an early Vedic Aryan, and talk to him about Shiva. The guy will be shocked. Who's Shiva? Because he didn't knew Shiva. He used to worship Rudra. But do you know who that Rudra was? Sun. Rudra in early Vedic is Sun, not Shiva. Even the name is changing. Sun had two names, right? Two names, not Surya, the name was there. Along with Surya, I'm also looking at the names like Aditya, Rudra, Mitra. Why Mitra? He is the benevolent friend. He is the one who's helping us with life. That's why he is also being called Mitra. Right? Take out your phones. Search for Mitras in Roman civilization. Mitras, Mitras in Roman civilization. Someone please switch off the lights now. At least these ones. Not all of them, man. Don't make it a horror show. What are you looking at? Mithraism, the worship of Mithra, the Iranian god of sun, justice, contract, and war in pre-Zoroastrian Iran, known as Mithras in the Roman Empire during the 2nd and 3rd century CE. But we know the word Mitra. What's the meaning of the word Mitra? Friend. And who's being called that friend? Sun. Look at the commonality. Clear? So tell me how this is happening. Because when I'm looking at the Aryans, I do see that yes, sir, Iran, Afghanistan, India, or at least northeastern India, These are not Western India. These are the areas where the Aryans came. They entered and they started settling. Right? If I may find the natives too low. This condition is very bad here. Anyway, cholo, nahi pe rehne do. This is Mithra. Clear? So tell me, is this the Hinduism that the Aryans in our early Vedic period they used to practice? No, it's not. So what concrete are you talking about? Tell me about the variability factor here. Anything that's variable, would that not be complex? Obviously, that is bound to be complex. Anything subjected by higher degree of variability factor, there would always be more complexities in it. Now look at that point that you have written down. Complexity of social science data. Do you realize why? Next. Social phenomena is unpredictable. Social phenomena is unpredictable. Not absolutely, but to a certain extent, yes, absolutely. That's how it is. I've told you again and again, even in the previous classes, in natural sciences, they can go for general laws. They can give us fixed results. In any of the social sciences, whether economics, sociology, political science, right? Can we give fixed result? Is it possible? We would always be talking about in probability, that there is a high probability that this may happen. But talking about a concrete result, you never know which parameter will change. Right? If you remember, I talked about one statement in the class previously. You cannot step in the same water twice, or you cannot step in the same river twice. Why? Say today we go to a river, right? And you take bath in that river. Tomorrow when you will go back to the river, this set of water has flown away. There will be a new set of water. So how can you step in the same water twice? Because this water has flown away. With this water flowing away, parameters are getting changed. With every passage of time, social parameters are changing. Let's talk about something here in the class, and I know I'm going to give you some cultural shock. Be prepared for that. Homosexuality. Is homosexuality welcomed in Indian culture? How?
Because we see many images in the temples where homosexuality is two male or two female images.
Okay. So why today we have this problem?
Because we don't know that our ancient law also.
Let's look at the changes that happened. This, what you said, ma'am, is very vague. Let's concretize that. Let's try to concretize it. Okay? I'm looking at a section called Section 377 of IPC. God knows when it will open. This one is still moving. Anyway, Section 377 of IPC is talking about unnatural sex. Okay? Prior to 2018, before 2018, among that unnatural sex was a unique form called homosexuality. So homosexuality was also considered an unnatural form of sex. Okay? From where did we get this idea? Britain. In 1588, Britain, they passed an act called Bagari Act. It was this Bagari Act which criminalized homosexual relationships. Okay? It was the British to whom homosexuality was something very uncanny, tangy, untouchworthy, right? This kind of a thing. In 1861, when the British, they were framing IPC, Indian Penal Code, they would bring this particular act into IPC as section 377. It is from there with the British that in Indian culture, homosexuality became an unnatural form of sex. Okay? Now let me talk about the relationship between Kunti and Madri. Who are they? Wives of Pandu. Right? They are the mothers of Pandavas. I'm talking about Kunti. Kunti became pregnant with Karan even before marriage. Who was the father? Sun, Surya. Pandu, because of one curse, Pandu cannot live with his wives. Pandu cannot have sexual relationship with his wives. Because if Pandu tries to have sexual relationship with his wives, he'll die. Pandu knew how to release Shabda Bhedi Ban. Right? He could hear a sound, and based on the sound, he could hit a target. On one occasion, he did that. He went for hunting, he heard the sound and he felt maybe a deer is there, and he shot an arrow. That arrow hit one rishi and his wife. They were in a love relationship at that point of time. That sound Pandu mistook, and Pandu shot the arrow. And as a result, those two died. When they died, at the time of their death, they cursed Pandu. If you try to be close to your wives, you'll also die. Right? So this is what happened with Pandu. Now Kunti is the one who's teaching Madri how to have relationship outside marriage. Kunti is the one who's teaching all these arts to Madri. So what's actually happening, ma'am? Tell me about ethics and morality here. Kunti was pregnant with Karan before marriage. Immediately after marriage, Pandu was not cursed. So naturally, Pandu and Kunti is expected to have sexual relationships. Right? After marrying Kunti, Pandu married again. Pandu married Madri. Okay? Now Pandu gets cursed, and Pandu cannot have sexual relationship with his wives. And Kunti invites the first one, Dharmaraj, Yama. Who's the father of Yudhishthir? Yama, Dharmaraj. Who's the father of Bhim? Pavan. Right? Who's the father of Arjun? So what's happening, man? How many sexual partners Kunti had? 5. Right? Madri is inviting whom? 2 brothers, Ashwini brothers. Who are these Ashwini brothers? They are actually the doctors among the gods, but 2 brothers, 2 twin brothers who were also in homosexual relationship. Don't you think people in ancient India, they were far more open-minded than what we are? So, it doesn't have to. If people are accepting this mythology, that means they were open to this idea that this can happen, it's okay. My point is, I'm not going to prove it. I don't want to prove it. I want that thought process. That thought process was existing and people were accepting that thought process. That's my point. Clear? I'm looking at Draupadi. How many husbands Draupadi had? All the five were brothers, right? And they were also sexual partners of Draupadi. Draupadi had children from all the five brothers. And these children of Draupadi, they would be killed by Ashwathama on the last day of the battle, at night. At night, when Ashwathama would raid the camp of the Pandavas, right? At that point of time, these brothers, they were sleeping, the sons of Draupadi, they were sleeping, and Ashwathama killed them. Yeah, he thought they were the Pandavas. So what am I looking at? Am I trying to defile my religion? No, I'm not. Am I trying to point out immorality, unethical behaviors of people? No, I'm not doing that. My simple point is that what you consider as ethics and morality is your own idea, what you have been taught today. That's not how the society operates. The society's right and wrong keeps on changing. Look at this idea only. Look how this very idea of homosexuality changed. I have a simple question for all of you. Who the hell do you think you are? Based on your liking and disliking, someone else's personal life should be conducted. What right do you have into someone else's bedroom? You can like homosexual relationships, you can dislike homosexual relationships. Let me tell you about me myself. There was a time when I used to have cringe with the very idea of homosexuality. I was so scared of the eunuchs, the transgenders. Do you know what my research guy did with me? He made me stay with them. For 3 months in Delhi, I stayed with them, the transgenders, in their colony. In the slum where they live, in Chandni Chowk area, I stayed there along with them for 3 months to see the pain of their lives, their regular lives, the way they are exploited. When they used to conduct those rainbow parades and all those things, the gay pride parades, I used to be there. I used to talk to them. I used to try to understand them. My simple question, Article 21 of Indian Constitution says, we all have right to life with dignity. That right to life with dignity also includes freedom in my bedroom. The way when I am in my bedroom with my wife and no one can interfere there. In a similar way, a homosexual person also has the right to be in the bedroom with his or her partner and no one has the right to interfere. As simple as that. So tell me, what have we been doing? Do you realize how society's understandings change? Now tell me about this first and second point that you have written down. Complexity of social science data and social phenomena being unpredictable. Do you realize what I mean? Clear? Next, number 3. Plurality of causes. Plurality of causes and intermixture of effects. Plurality of causes and intermixture of effects. Let me ask you, So let me ask this question to the 5 new faces I'm looking at in the class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You were there initially, no? You were there. I'm talking about you. In IAS classes you have met me. Fine. I'm going to ask the 5 of you. Why civil services? Acha, how many of you, you 5, are engineers? You're an engineer, and then you have come to be a civil servant. Okay. Why civil service? One by one, I'm coming to all of you, ma'am. Don't give me any bookish answer. The reality. Your passion. So you mean to say that you were born with this idea? The moment you cried, you said, I want to be a civil servant. No. How do you get this passion? Think. I'll come to you later. Ma'am. Why civil services? Acha, before you answer, let me tell you, I've asked this question to all of them. Right? Different purposes of experimentation. Right now, we are doing a social experimentation here in the class. Okay? Before the experimentation, you have the right to know that this is an experiment that's going on. So be honest. Be honest to yourself. Be honest to this experiment. Okay? That's why I asked you no bookish answer, please. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So I saw criteria and I'm thought that I have to become an officer position and I have to develop my. I came from that idea.
Okay. Who told you that an IAS officer can do that? A politician can also do that. The Gram Panchayat, the Pradhan can also do that. Absolutely, ma'am. Without the Gram Panchayat Pradhan, the IAS officer cannot do anything. Then, why civil services? Okay, we got 2 points. Ma'am, you. Number 1, achievement. Number 1, social prestige. Right? These are 2 points. Good. Ma'am.
Where civil services is that I love the subjects. So I discovered this in my 10th class. I used to get good marks in social. Though I used to get it in sciences also, but I used to like social science.
So why didn't you do your masters and then do your PhD and all that thing?
That's it. No, but I was supposed to take NPC in 10th. Then somehow I fought with my parents and I BA in my degree. So then I discovered that yes, by studying the social sciences we can make a future. Then I have decided civil services. The first I have decided is that my subject is in the core topics in the civil services.
Okay. But if you're here only for the sake of the subjects, I would always suggest why don't you go for your masters? Why don't you complete your masters? Why don't you go for PhD after this?
Masters doesn't give me career. So I want to make a career out of my passion. I chose civil services.
Ma'am, the sky is the limit today. Whether sociology, political science, economics, the kind of work that's going on is unthinkable. Our parents, they're still living in a world which is 30 years backward. They have no idea. But academically, the kind of work that's going on, and even in the coming days, the way the scopes are going to open up, the sky is the limit in the general fields, not in the technical fields anymore. There is a huge amount of saturation in engineering. There is a huge amount of saturation in doctors as well. MBA was a new field. MBA is also fast getting saturated, right? But these traditional fields, they have tremendous amount of opportunity. Let me tell you one simple thing. every year UPSC comes out with one particular position, that of in archaeological services, right? They get the same rank that of an IAS officer. For last 10 years, on an average, UPSC has been coming out with 15 positions every year. And the average number of application have been 5 every year. Number of positions are 15, applications are of number 5. There is a crowd, there is a rush, but at one particular level. If you can break that level in academics, if you can rise above, the sky is the limit. You have no idea. And lateral entry has always been there. One of the typical examples is archaeological services. From the field of academics only. The same rank, the same prestige.
We are not aware of that because always the society used to think art students too degraded than compared to the sciences. So
That's the traditional mindset, and that mindset is 30 years old.
but even present generation is also thinking.
Because they're being trained like that, na? Where is the exposure? Where is the exposure? Right? That's what is happening. Anyway, so just for the sake of subjects coming to civil services, I'll come to that point later on. Okay, ma'am, why civil services? Okay. May I talk about the multiplicity of the causes behind? High chances, movies. You saw IAS officers or IPS officers in the movies and them being praised, them being glorified, the position being glorified. Right? Cause number 1. Cause number 2, reaction of your parents. When you started talking about civil services, your parents felt proud. Okay, now she is talking some sense, some meaning. Right? Number 3, you also saw the reaction in the eyes of others. Maybe your friends, maybe your relatives. All you 5 being girls, there must have been some aunties who also told you, why civil services, be a school teacher. And then she must have added, you have a life after all. Why civil services? How many of you have been demotivated with respect to police service? How many of you have IPS, the girls in the class? How many of you have IPS as your ambition? 1, 2. Okay, just 2 girls. Right? Your relatives know that you have IPS as your ambition, police service as your ambition. By your relatives, I don't mean your father or your mother. I mean the other people. I mean your aunties and all. Especially the aunties. They know that you have police service as your ambition. And they're okay with that. No one said anything against this. What about you, ma'am? They know? Everyone knows that police service is your ambition. They know police service or they know civil services? Civil services. That's where I'm being specific. Your relatives know about civil services or about police service? Police service. Your father is from police service? That's why. Come to the point. Come to the core. Okay. Anyway, for you, they know that civil service is a ambition, not the police service. Right? Your mother will be okay, ma'am. Talk to your aunties and all about police service and see the reaction. Right? A girl in police service. Anyway, let's come back. So, what am I looking at? I'm looking at multiple effects on you. Not just one effect. I'm looking at the idea of a good salary and perquisites. The cash component is not great, but the perquisites are bungalow, car, people to serve you. Right? I'm also looking at the social prestige. Yesterday in the class only, we were talking about the social prestige, right? So I'm looking at the social prestige. I'm also looking at the idea of being able to do something meaningful. Maybe you will be having some control over power. You'll be able to do something at least. Right? So all these factors together, and the way that glorification happens in the movies, in the newspapers, someone clearing civil services, there would be interviews of that person published in the newspapers. Names would be published that this particular person from this particular district has achieved this particular rank and is going to be has got into the final merit list. Now, so every year, even the names of those people are published in the newspapers, and you're looking at those things. Okay? All these multiple things, they're having the effect on one decision of yours. So tell me, are you taking this decision of civil services only for one reason? Multiple reasons. Look at the point you have noted down. Plurality of causes and intermixture of effects. Can anyone say, I am going to be a civil servant only because of this one reason? No. All these multiple things are there behind your decision. Clear? Next, number 4. Social phenomena are heterogeneous. Social phenomena are heterogeneous. That means multidimensional. Right? Let me ask you, why do UPSC ask you about the multiple dimensions of anything? Let's talk about impact of economic reforms on Indian society, social impact of globalization. How many different types of impact have we seen? What is globalization first? And this, again, I'm talking about a topic from the syllabus only. Believe me. This topic is there in your GS syllabus as well. This topic is here in Indian society as well. Effect of globalization on Indian society. Some rough area, write down the heading. Effect of globalization on Indian society. Okay. Tell me what all effects can you think of? First, what is globalization? Right? We talk about 3 things: LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Liberalization is the idea of deregulating the market. Previously, on everything, there was a government control. Say you want to set up a factory, and to set up the factory, you have to import nuts and bolts. Previously, because of license regime that the government of India had, we call that license Raj. You had to ask for separate permission for the nuts and separate permission for the bolts. Maybe for constructing the factory, you need 1,000 pieces of nuts and 1,000 pieces of bolt. You have to go to 2 IAS officers, 2 separate officers. One officer will give you permission to purchase nuts. The other officer will give you permission to purchase bolt. Now say the officer who is supposed to give you permission to purchase bolt is not happy with you. You're supposed to buy 1,000 pieces of nuts and 1,000 pieces of bolt. The person to whom you went to have permission for 1,000 pieces of nuts gave you permission to buy 1,000 pieces of nuts. The particular officer who's supposed to give you permission to buy bolts gave you permission to buy 400 pieces of bolt. You have 1,000 pieces of nuts, 400 pieces of bolt. How are you going to construct the factory? This was the condition in India. This license regime was cancelled, was finished off. That was liberalization. You can do whatever you want to do. Not for everything you need to take permission. Obviously, you want to sell marijuana, can't do that. Right? You want to sell drugs, can't do that. For that, you need drugs license and all that thing. Okay. So, but other than that, there are so many deregulated sectors. Clear? Number 2, privatization. What is privatization? Allowing private capital. And then comes the opening up of Indian economy to the world players, multinational corporations. That's globalization. Tell me the impact of globalization on Indian society as it happened. That too happened because of privatization as well. And I'm talking about social impact. What kind of cultural changes? How many of you like pizza? How many of you like continental dishes? Even I'm there. How many of you like Chinese? Okay. What am I looking at? Choices, increased choices. Why? Globalization. How many of you are wearing jeans here in the class? How many of us are wearing branded clothes right now? Whether Alan Solly, whether Peter England, whether Louis Philippe, whether, say, Lee Cooper, Wrangler, Asics, or Woodlands, or anything. You know the colors of Benetton, right? What am I looking at? Choices in dressing style. At the same point of time, I'm looking at more number of girls getting higher education. I'm looking at a tremendous impact on women's empowerment in India. Why? Because for the multinational corporations who came to India, male workers or female workers don't matter. Workers matter. Skilled workers at cheap labor rate, that matters. Throughout the day, how many calls do you get for insurance, for credit cards, for loans, for God knows what not? Multiple? Invariably, most of the time, the voices are that of the girls. Nah? Telecallers, then receptionists. These are some jobs which have been completely categorized for women only. We call that pink collarization of job. At the same point of time, I'm also looking at a men's tie brand, right? They didn't launch. Hello, let's not talk about that ad campaign. Let's talk about another ad campaign. How many of you think that just by using one particular brand of deodorant, you can attract girls? How many of you really think, let me ask the boys, how many of you really think that by using one particular brand or one particular flavor of deodorant, you can attract girls like fleas? Do you think they are fleas? Or do you think that by using one particular flavor of the deodorant, you will become that of a chocolate? And then my question to the girls, how can you even accept that? Do you realize where you are being pushed down into? That's called commodification of woman. Objectification of woman and commodification of woman. cricket match is going on. I'm looking at one of the finest female journalists, but she invariably has to wear shorts. She has to expose her legs. Why? We know that she is a very good journalist. She is far more objective on cricket reporting than many of the male journalists. But in spite of that, she is invariably wearing shorts, short skirts or short dresses, exposing her legs. Why? That too is happening, right? If good things are happening, bad things are also happening. Now look at that thing. Look at that heading. Social impact of globalization. Just to sell a particular brand of male undergarments, why do you need girls there? That's my question to you. Clear? So tell me. When I was discussing, did I look at only one dimension? Can I? No one can. Or no one should. If there are good sides, there are bad sides as well. And right now, I focused even then only on the impact on girls, on women. Let's talk about the impact on children. Let's talk about the impact on medical industry. India is the world leader in medical tourism. Do you know that? What is medical tourism? People from other countries, they come to India for treatment. I'm looking at a person from United States of America coming to India for open heart surgery. Why? I'm looking at the cost factor. Okay? If you talk about the Indian doctors are as capable as that of the doctors in United States of America. The quality of treatment given in India and the quality of treatment given in USA are actually at par in the good hospitals. I'm not talking about the government hospital in a village. No. Right? I do have pathetic experiences there. Let's not talk about that. But I'm talking about good hospitals in metropolitan cities like Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai, Pune. Right? I'm looking at those hospitals and the quality of treatment given in these hospitals. I'm looking at that. Let's talk about the total cost or the total expenditure that a person is supposed, say an American comes to India for open heart surgery. What would be the cost? First, the airfare to and fro. Now, obviously, if a person is coming for open heart surgery, the person would not be coming alone. Would obviously be accompanied by another person. At least two people would be coming. So let's talk about the travel, the fare to and fro from India to USA. USA to India, India to USA. 1,40,000 rupees per person. 2,80,000 rupees. Set aside. The open heart surgery. Average cost 2,50,000 to 3 lakh rupees. Let's take the 3 lakh rupees figure. 2,80,000 plus 3 lakh, 5,80,000. They have to stay here in India for at least 1 month. Right? So I'm assuming to stay in India for 1 month, they have to spend something around 75,000 rupees. Chalo. Exorbitant cost. 75,000 rupees for 1 month. Right? So 2,80,000 plus 75,000. That comes to 2,80,000 plus 3 lakh, 5,80,000 plus 75,000. This is 6,55,000. 650, chalo. Okay? All the other expenses and everything included, 8 lakh rupees. Right? 8,50,000 rupees, chalo. It cannot cost a person more than that. post-operative care, everything included, it cannot go beyond 8,50,000 rupees. 8,50,000 rupees means $10,000. The same person in United States of America, if the person is supposed to go for that open heart surgery, would be paying $40,000. And the person is spending $10,000 here in India, getting the same quality of treatment. Which is cheaper? India. Clear? As a result, I'm looking at heavy traffic in terms of medical tourism to India. Okay? That's also an impact of globalization only. This world-class treatment facilities and everything that we have here. Why? Because of globalization. If on one hand that's true, on the other hand, let's talk about the expenses or the level of expenditure for the common Indians. Let's talk about the medical expenses here. At the time of COVID, we have seen in Delhi, I'm not going to name the hospital, an old lady of 68 years, she got COVID. Her husband was of 75 years. The husband took the wife to the hospital. After 15 days, she died. The hospital made a bill of 26 lakh rupees. They refused to release the body. Only when this was made public, things came into media, out of shame and all, they finally settled at a lower figure and discharged the body. Tell me about the medical expenses in India for the common Indians. Where is it going? 26 lakh rupees for 15 days? So tell me those aspects as well. In this whole discussion, what was I doing? I was looking at multiple dimensions. Same phenomena. What is the phenomenon? Social impact of globalization. And how many aspects did I look at? I looked at the impact on children. I looked at the impact on women. I looked at the impact on medical facilities. I looked at the positive sides. I looked at the negative sides. That's what we mean by heterogeneous. Anything you talk about would be having so many multiple dimensions. Clear? That's what social science is. Okay, next point. Difficulty in measurement and quantification. Difficulty in measurement and quantification. Let me ask you, how can I measure qualitative data? How can I measure hunger? Tell me. How much hungry you are? Do you go back to your home and tell your mother, today I'm 10 degree hungry? Something like that. Or I'm 40 degree happy. Tell me about the measurement of hunger and measurement of happiness. We have indices about both, right? Hunger index and happiness index. Take out your phones. Search for hunger index, the factors we look at in hunger index, and the factors we look at in happiness index. What are the factors in hunger index? Now tell me, how many of you had lunch before coming to the class? Were you bothered about child nourishment, malnutrition and all these things while having your food? How many of you thought about that? how to measure the level of your hunger, your personal hunger I'm talking about. Tell me how to measure that. Because that data you're looking at is so generalized. Do you know most of us, the city dwellers, most of us living in the urban areas, the amount of food that we consume, we don't need that. We eat more. Don't look at my belly. I know I'm obese. Okay? Even I'm looking at skinny people, so-called skinny people having fatty liver. How can that be? That can only happen if we are eating more than what we require, what our body requires. So tell me the measurement now. Tell me how to measure your hunger exactly. What is the optimum level of food that if you take that food, you'll be really happy? 10 rasgulla? Something like that? 20 mirchi? How to measure it? Clear? Similarly, happiness index. Look at the factors of happiness index. What are the parameters used in happiness index? Look at them. So, early in the morning, you woke up with very jovial mood and you felt, okay, in my country, there is no corruption, so I'm so happy. Something like that. Or while looking at the sunrise, you feel, with this sunrise, all the corruption in my country ended. How to measure happiness? These are qualitative data. How can you measure qualitative data? How can you measure the level of your satisfaction? Just simply answer me. How to measure satisfaction? Which is the optimum level where you're satisfied? 1 cup of coffee in the morning makes me satisfied. Right? It completely depends on the taste. You're given a cup of Nescafe where it contains more amount of water, say in the railway stations. That coffee can never satisfy you. So, it's all qualitative in nature. I just had a tea in the class. After having the first sip, I felt, why did I ask them? So tell me what makes you satisfied? What is a measure of satisfaction? It is completely subjective. How can I measure that? Sense of achievement. What is the measurement of sense of achievement? Every year, there is one topper in civil services examination, right? Tell me how many of these toppers in life, they made a mark. Every year there is a topper. Nowadays, the toppers of civil service examination, they become social media sensations. But how many of them actually make a mark in life? I know only of one person. In the history of 76 years of India's independence, 76 years of civil services in independent India, I know only of one person. T.N. Session. A person who was an election commissioner of India long time back in 1992. He was the topper of his batch. Right? One IAS officer who made the Prime Minister feel the power of an IAS officer. Even P.V. Narasimha Rao could not control that guy. For the first time in India, we got a pan-Indian identity card. Voter's ID card, his invention. The previous election commissioner before TN session, Mr. Peri Shastri, he wrote an application to the Ministry of Finance asking for 300 rupees. He wanted to buy a dictionary. The price of the dictionary was 300 rupees. So he had to write an application to the Ministry of Finance. He, please grant me a fund of 300 rupees so that I can buy a dictionary for the election commission. TN session came to the office, tore all that applications. What nonsense. This is a constitutional body. A constitutional body is bound to have its own economic freedom. The constitutional body should not be dependent on any ministry for any affairs. That impacts the independent operation of the election commission. He is the first one to make the election commission stand up on his feet. For the first time, the people of India came to know that there is something called election commission after the first election commissioner. The first election commissioner of India, Mr. Sukumar Sen, was also someone like this. After Sukumar Sen, 1950, the second one came in 1992, after 42 years. Then again, after 10 years, we got someone who made one of the chief ministers of a state to cry. James Michael Lindo, 2002. Who practically made the then incumbent chief minister of Gujarat look like a culprit. These people, they proved the power of their chairs. But in so many years, in 76 years of independent India's history, I'm looking at only one person who was the topper of the batch and also made a mark. TN Session is not alive. He doesn't care whether we remember him or not. But that voter ID card that you carry, there's another name, Sessions card, after TN Session. That man is immortal. Just one officer. Just one person, one topper. That's it. So what happens to the other toppers? Where is that sense of achievement? Where is that sense of satisfaction? Tell me. Qualifying this examination is not an achievement. Believe me, in India, we celebrate mediocrity. Clear? There is a reason why he talks about lateral entries going on. Because after qualifying this examination, majority of the people, they become mediocres. They stop studying. The day you stop studying, your progress gets halted. Yes, but I'm talking about someone making a mark. Right? That mark. Not even D. Subbarao. He was good. I cannot deny that. He was good. But someone making a mark, that's something really significant. Right? Clear? Come back. Look at the point that you have noted down. Difficulty in measurement and quantification. Next, subjectivity of the researcher. Subjectivity of the researcher and objectivity of the research. subjectivity of the researcher and objectivity of the research. Do you think you can seriously be objective ever? We have studied fact value and objectivity, right? We know what objectivity is. Why do we need objectivity? If you want to be true to the research, if you want to be true to the subject, you have to deal with the topic in an emotionless condition, where your personal prejudice, your liking, disliking should not be affecting the research. And we, the human beings, the first thing that happens to us, our values start playing. Our values tell us this is good. No, that's not good. Nah? Tell me how many times you have been carried away by your emotions. Tell me how many times you felt like crying after something. How many times, and it's okay to cry, even for the boys. That idea, men don't cry, there can't be anything more toxic masculinity than that particular statement. It's perfectly all right for men to cry. Tell me how many times you were so happy after something. So can you be genuinely emotionless? Can you be genuinely objective? Is it possible? Yes or no? It's very difficult. Extremely difficult. Let's talk about a person, a great person, a great physicist. This physicist got scared. This physicist came to know that the Germans are making atomic bomb. One of the juniors of this physicist, one of the juniors of this particular scientist, gave him the research papers. This physicist, this scientist, wrote a letter to the then American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, telling him that the Germans are making atomic bomb. The next American president, Harry S. Truman, would react on that letter. Why? Because the name of that physicist, because of the name of that particular scientist. Project Manhattan would be built, spending $1 million of the time, under another physicist called Robert Oppenheimer. Four nuclear bombs would be built. First one named Trinity, second one named Little Boy, third one named Fat Man. We do not know the name of the fourth one because the fourth one was never used. The first one, Trinity, would be detonated in the deserts of New Mexico, Texas. That's the first nuclear explosion on Earth. When that explosion will take place, looking at the power of the explosion, Oppenheimer would say, "Now I have become death." A very famous stanza from Bhagavad Gita, where the avatara of Vishnu, the Vishwarupam, is telling Arjuna, showing him the Vishwarupam. Krishna says, "Now I have become death." That particular statement he uses, he quotes. So many people in India become so happy. And as a result, 15 lakh people in Japan died. The name of that scientist? Albert Einstein. The name of that physicist who wrote the letter? Albert Einstein. He was scared. As a result of his fear, 15 lakh people in Japan died. Tell me about objectivity. 1946, a German scientist by the name Otto Hahn, O-T-T-O-H-A-N-H, Otto Hahn, would be awarded Nobel Prize in Physics. When this announcement would take place, Otto Hahn would start crying like a child. Why? He would keep on calling himself guilty of killing those 15 lakh people. Otto Hahn was the German scientist who actually split the atom. Who was actually able to split the atom. One of his juniors stole the research paper, gave it to Einstein. When the Nazis in Germany, Hitler and others, were pressurizing Otto Hahn to make the atomic bomb, Otto Hahn kept on fooling them. He did nothing. The bomb was not being manufactured. Otto Hahn kept on fooling the Nazis. Otto Hahn knew if the bomb is made, the Nazis will use them. Otto Hahn knew if the Nazis come to know that Otto Hahn is fooling them, the Nazis will kill him. He took the risk. To him, it was his life versus so many more lives. So Otto Hahn didn't build the bomb. As a result, when the announcement was made that Otto Hahn is being given a Nobel Prize in Physics for splitting the atom, he started crying like anything. It's just because of his research, 15 lakh people died. Alfred Nobel. Do you know why Alfred Nobel instituted this particular prize? He's the one who for the first time manufactured TNT, dynamite. Alfred Nobel's idea was that using this dynamite, roads would be manufactured, right? Tunnels would be dug. This dynamite will be used for the benefit of the people. 1880, Franco-German War. The Germans and the French both used dynamite to kill each other's soldiers. Alfred Nobel saw that. He saw his invention is not being used for betterment of humankind. Nah, his invention is being used for killing people. Nobel sold all his assets, started a fund, a charitable fund, by selling his assets. The first prize he instituted, Nobel Peace Prize. It's Alfred Nobel. He writes a letter to the Swedish monarch, the Swedish king, that I want you to be the chairman of the trustee. The Swedish king writes back, it's my honor to be the chairman of the trustee. It's you who's requesting me. That's Alfred Nobel. Someone tells Alfred Nobel, why just peace? Even for fundamental research, people don't have money. If they can benefit from your charitable fund, that will be good. So after the Peace Prize, now Alfred Nobel introduces Nobel Prize in Physics, Nobel Prize in Chemistry, Nobel Prize in Biology, Nobel Prize in Mathematics, Nobel Prize in Literature. No, not economics. 1973, the Swedish Royal Bank, they would add some fund in the fund of the trustee, fund of the charitable trust. And now the Royal Swedish Bank, they would introduce Nobel Prize in Economics. 1973, 72 or 73. That's the history of Nobel Prize. So even the best possible scientists, can they be truly objective? Can they be truly value neutral? Can they be truly detached from everything? Take out your phones. Search for Albert Einstein sticking his tongue out. Look at that photo. That's an original photo. Albert Einstein sticking his tongue out. Looking at that picture, the first thing you'll feel, let's buy a comb and give it to him. You comb his hair first. Nah? And And the second thing, we should teach him decency. In public, you cannot do all that nonsense. He was traveling in a car. One of the journalists asked for his photo. He said, "You want to take a photo of me? Fine, take it." And he took the tongue out. Take the photo. Right? That's Albert Einstein. Do you think this man is completely objective? This man is highly emotional and he is skittish. Do you know how Isaac Newton died? For 3 years, we do not know on what topic, Isaac Newton was doing research. The day he finally finished his research, he came out of his library. In the library, a candle was burning. Newton had a dog. The name of the dog was Diamond. Okay, Diamond got into the library. Diamond started playing. While playing, Diamond tripped the candle. The candle burned the whole library. When Newton came back, he saw the whole library is burnt. All his research for last 8 years is gone. He didn't scold Diamond. He just told Diamond, Diamond, you don't know what you have done. 3 days, Newton dies of heart attack. Do you want me to believe that guy was completely objective? That guy had no emotion? That's Isaac Newton. What, ma'am? Look at the point you have written. Subjectivity of the researcher and objectivity of the research. Clear? Next. Thomas Kahn. Thomas Kahn is also a very famous sociologist. Okay. On one occasion, he started blaming the scientists like anything. He starts pointing out the subjectivity in natural science research. Let's discuss this, then we'll write. Have you ever heard about eugenics? Never heard of this, right? Take out your phones, search for eugenics. I wanted to show you using my laptop, but given the condition of the internet, it's better for you to do it. Selective breeding among human beings. You have no idea in Nazi Germany, in Soviet Russia, the way they worked on eugenics. Why? Hitler was obsessed with the idea of Aryan race. Blue-eyed, tall, fair, handsome, blonde hairs, that kind of feature. Hitler himself was 5 feet 6 inches. Right? But he was obsessed with that idea. Aryan race. All the so-called great people, most of the so-called great people, they were extremely short. Alexander, 4 feet 10 inches. A little bit more shorter, we could have called him dwarf. Right? Napoleon Bonaparte, 5 feet 4 inches. Genghis Khan also. Right? Adolf Hitler, practically all the brutes. Yeah, people call Alexander the Great. What great about Alexander? He burned the libraries. That's Alexander. He destroyed all the documents and all these things. That's Alexander. Genghis Khan, the great rapist. No? Hitler, the great humanist. He was humanist. He was trying to control population. Mass population control. That's what Hitler was doing. Anyway. So Thomas Kahn says that a lot of subjectivity is passed on in the name of objectivity in science, in scientific method. What is eugenics? Highly subjective. You call that science? What science is it? Today, properly, we consider eugenics as pseudoscience. I don't know whether you're getting it properly or not. Just ask Google AI to generate the data for you. It will be properly mentioned there that this is pseudoscience. This is not science. This cannot be science. No, all the methods are scientific methods. But just because all the methods are scientific methods, don't make it a science. It's pseudoscience. Clear? At the same point of time, once a theory is established, right? Say one particular great scholar gave a theory and the theory gets established. Do we cross-check the theory again after being proven? Do we do that in science? No. We just take it for granted. That's one major difference that sociology has with natural sciences. In sociology, even the great, so-called great thinkers, if they have said something, we never take it for granted. I'll even ask you to repetitively validate those theories. Karl Marx, there's a thinker in your syllabus, Karl Marx. That guy died in 1883. 140 years back, that guy died. Right? His body is buried in a grave in London. You go dig the grave, nothing will be found. He has become proper manure now. If you ask me, let's put some rose plant on his grave. Those rose plants will be having good amount of manure there. They'll be giving good flowers. Flower of Karl Marx. That's what Karl Marx has become. My point is, after 140 years, why are we studying Karl Marx today? Relevance. So we have to prove that. We have to keep on validating it. Just because that guy said something, no, we are not following because of that. He said, he died, he's buried, he's gone. But even today, if we are studying someone, why are we studying that person? The most recent scholar mentioned in your syllabus, Robert King Merton, R.K. Merton, died in 2003, 20 years back. You go dig his grave, some bones will be found. What am I supposed to do? Play drums with his bones? Drum beats with the bones of Robert King Merton? Why am I studying him? Relevance. Prove it. Prove that what he said is still valid. So we keep on judging them. We keep on testing them again and again. But in natural sciences, once a theory is accepted, they never try to revalidate the theory. They just take it for granted. That theory is there. Why? Who said so? A theory may be proven in the backdrop of one particular situation. In the other situation, that theory will not prove right. And what do we say? Exceptions prove the rule. We just ignore those things as exceptions. There is nothing called exception in sociology. Anything that's happening, we would try to find out. We become so individualistic. We try to find out the reasons behind that one particular thing, why that thing happened. Clear? Take out your phones. Search for Holy Artisan Bakery Attack Dhaka. Holy Artisan Bakery Attack Dhaka. Look at the 5 boys who conducted this attack. Holy Artisan Bakery Attack, Dhaka. 2016, right? Look at those 5 boys. They came from the most prestigious school in Dhaka. One of the boys was son of a minister in Bangladesh. One of the boys, one of them, his father is the richest man in Bangladesh. Why did these boys get into Islamic State? How they were brainwashed. In sociology, nothing is an exception. We take every instance individually, we look into it. We get deep into it. That's what we do. Right? Look at these boys. Can you find anything common with Ajmal Kasab? Ajmal Kasab is the terrorist who came from Pakistan to India to attack Mumbai, 26/11/2008. Do we find anything common with these boys and Ajmal Kasab? Ajmal Kasab came from a poverty-stricken family, where Ajmal Kasab and those 10 boys, they knew if they die, their families will at least get to eat. Why did these boys commit this crime? They have nothing in common with Ajmal Kasab. So don't try to tell me about general laws. We have to be individualistic. We have to prove everything. Clear? Just imagine these 5 boys, what they did. As a result of that, Bangladeshi army had to move in. I don't know whether you're looking at the images or not. If you look at the images, you'll find they were even using armored personnel carrier. Rapid Action Battalion was using, it's called RAB, Rapid Action Battalion. They were using armored personnel carrier to deal with these 5 boys. Total 29 people died, if I'm not wrong. 29 people died. Just 5 kids, 5 school-going kids, they caused this. And these kids are not coming from that general category. Nah, they're who's who. They're coming from the elite. Do you realize the complexity of social science data? That's sociology. Clear? Now look at all the points that you have written down. Criticism of scientific method. Anything that you have not been able to understand, ask me. Don't hesitate. Your doubts are not for you. Your doubts are for me. Clear? Everyone. Chalo. Let's wrap up the class today, right? We are meeting again tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Achha, I was supposed to discuss that previous questions, right? Tomorrow, I would start with the previous questions, in fact. Right? We'll first go for the previous questions on these particular topics. Take out the syllabus, please, once before we end the class. Sure. Fine. Why not? But first, take out the syllabus right now. Let's see what all we have completed. Right? Chapter 1. Rise of modernity and social change in Europe, or emergence of sociology, that particular area, done. Next scope of the subject, done. Next, comparison with other social sciences, done. Next, sociology and common sense, done. Now I'm coming to chapter 2. So, science, scientific method and its critique, done. Next comes major theoretical strands, done. Positivism and its critique, done. Done. Did we do that? Interactionist perspective and symbolic interactionism. I told you again and again, UPSC has broken it in 3 parts, but they are actually the same thing, one and only thing. Major theoretical strands, there are 5 major theoretical strands. The first one is positivism. The second one is functionalism. The third one is radicalism. Karl Marx, conflict perspective. Fourth one is interactionist perspective or interpretive sociology. Fifth one is symbolic interactionism. So when we study major theoretical strands, we study them together. But within these 5 only, I have positivism. I also have interest critique separately. They have mentioned non-positivistic methodology separately. But actually, they are part of one and only thing, major theoretical strands. The 5 major theoretical strands. Clear? So even chapter 2 is complete. Tomorrow, let's do one thing. Tomorrow we have 3 targets. I'm going to revise positivism and its critique. Right? I would try to present a new dimension, why positivism came ultimately. Why that is the first methodology that was introduced in sociology. Right? If you remember the discussion of Auguste Comte, trying to establish sociology as science, Herbert Spencer supporting Auguste Comte, even Emile Durkheim trying to prove them right. Why that positivism? Why that positivistic methodology? Right? So positivism and its critique. I'll try to revise that first. After revising that, I'll go for the questions of the test that I gave you. And then I'll go for the previous questions on both these 2 chapters. Both of these 2 chapters. Clear? Guys, again and again, do bother to go through the previous questions. 2 questions. Number 1, how do you know what I'm teaching here is actually what you need? I don't want your faith. I'm not God. I want your confidence. That I would want. You keep your faith for God, not for me. Okay? Number 2, I want you to have confidence on yourself. I want you to know whether you can handle those questions or not. Go through the previous questions. Clear? Chalo. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.